So good morning, one more time, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome at the World of Freight Summit here in Vienna. And let me smoothly continue with the very first panel discussion which is prepared on our program for this day. Because in the aviation industry, it has been common to sell passengers tickets and additional services online for many years. But how about air cargo? Digital air cargo has grown at an incredible pace during the last few years, and it brought new opportunities and new business models, but did it also fully arrive in day-to-day business for all stakeholders? What can be done today without any paper documents and fully digital, and where is it still necessary to stick to the very old-fashioned way of collecting papers and stamping documents? Our very first panel discussion will explore different areas of the air cargo industry, like pricing, real-time visibility, communication between stakeholders, documentation, and the customs processes, and has air cargo truly gone digital? This we will find out thanks to our guests and our leading speakers. So let me welcome on the stage CEO of Freightos, Mr. Zvi Schreiber, and his guests. Good morning.
So what's... Okay. Okay, so should I introduce the panel and then invite the guests? What's the process you'd like? I guess. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Zvi Schreiber, founder and CEO of Freightos. Freightos is like a booking.com for freights. We recently went public on NASDAQ, and we also own WebCargo, which is the biggest platform for air bookings. We have thousands of air bookings every day. And very excited to be back here in Vienna. We have an excellent panel to discuss air cargo. I think it's very relevant that the organizers chose to start with air cargo. We're going to ask the question now, did air cargo truly go digital? And I think the answer is partly, but more than any other mode. So air cargo has gone more digital than ocean and more digital than road, and I think therefore it's fitting that we're going to start with the topic of air cargo. And we have an excellent panel here. We have shippers, we have airlines, we have an airport. And so let me invite the panel to the stage. How do you like to do this? Should I invite them one at a time? Is that the idea? Okay, great. So invite first Carl from Vishay, Vice President of Logistics Worldwide. Where's Carl? Thank you. Great. And Elizabeth, or Liz, from Lufthansa Cargo, Commercial Manager for Austria. Martin from Lenovo, Head of Global Logistics Procurement. I'm doing just first names because I'm going to mess up the family names if I say them, so excuse me. Josef from Budapest Airport, Head of Cargo. And Peter from Air France KLM Martinair, Director of Germany and Austria. Very good, so let me allow the panelists to introduce themselves, each for a minute or two. Carl, do you want to kick off?
Why not? My name is Karl Hausteiner. I am VP of Global Logistics for Vishay. Vishay is a global manufacturer of electronic components, semiconductors, passive components. We have a global footprint. Logistics is global. Our processes are global. Digitization really plays a role for us in one or the other sense. Thank you.
Great. Liz.
Hello, my name is Elisabeth Glatzel. I've been with the Lufthansa Group for almost 10 years now, most of that time working for Lufthansa Cargo. In my current position as commercial manager, I'm responsible for the commercial steering and market positioning of Lufthansa Cargo in Austria. And I also work on many digitizations projects and initiatives, that's why I'm really excited to be here today. I'm based here at Vienna Airport, which is the largest belly hub of Lufthansa Cargo outside Germany. We do not only utilize the capacities of our own freighter fleet, Boeing 777, and as of last year also Airbus A321, but also the bellies of Austrian Airlines, Lufthansa Cargo, Lufthansa Passage, Sun Express, Eurowings Discover, and Brussels Airlines. So here in Austria, we are the home carrier for the Austrian air freight market, and we offer our customers many direct uplift possibilities within the entire Austrian Airlines network, and also to many intercont destinations.
Martin.
So, good morning. My name is Martin Plakovic, not like that one says Michael, but doesn't matter. I'm the head of Global Logistics Procurement at Lenovo. It's a global function that is part of the Global Logistics Organization. Together with my team, we are procuring the whole logistics menu, air freight, charters, ocean freight, rail, road, warehousing, customs, all the services that Lenovo has globally. We are gathering more than $1 billion spent on a yearly basis just spending on logistics. So things like digitalization, innovation are a great subject, so I'm really pleased to be here today and seeing so many faces. It's great that after the last 2 years with COVID, we see a platform like this catching up, and I'm looking forward for good discussions today.
Great, Josef.
Yes, my name is Joseph Kossuth. Guten Morgen, good morning. Very nice to be here. I'm from Budapest Airport. We are developing a kind of cargo gateway for our region, and we make quite intense investments in cargo. We spent some 80 million euros we are spending in 2-3 years' time for cargo infrastructure development. And I'm very happy to join this digitization panel because this is a very significant part of the cargo development, and this is the truly gone digital. It is a must for everybody, I guess, in the air freight and logistics. Thank you.
Peter.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Visser, 59 years old, married with three children. I lived my whole life already at Air France KLM, and the question is a little bit, why is that? Well, because I think it's a very innovative company. KLM happens to be the oldest airline in the world, so we were pioneers, so to say, and that theme of pioneering has come back, I think, in the whole history of the company. For example, with the introduction of the Combi aircraft, very famous in the cargo business, the merger with Northwest, or let's say the joint venture with Northwest, but also the merger with Martin Air, and lately, for example, also the joint venture with CMA CGM, very exciting. But last but not least, we try to be innovative in digital. We had a strategy 5 years ago that we want to become a leader in digital. And I'm very pleased to be here to learn from each other what's going on in this business and learn from each other and exchange a lot during these 2 days.
Fantastic. And I want to say that the organizers did very well to invite the 2 leaders in terms of airlines in digitization onto this panel. Can you hear me okay? Air cargo digitization had a funny history. It started very late. I always like to remind people that digitization of passenger travel by airlines started in 1963. That's when American Airlines started Sabre. They didn't call it digitalization then, but it was a kind of computerized booking in the 60s. And as far as I know, digitization of air cargo only started in 2018. That was the year that WebCargo connected to Lufthansa, 2018. So there was like a 60-year gap almost, a 50-something year gap. And 2018 was the very first year, and 2019 was the year we got a second airline, and that was Air France KLM. So these 2 airlines here were the first 2, as far as I know, to create any kind of digital connection. And since then, it's gone crazy. Now we have maybe 40 airlines, and it's grown very fast. So the digital revolution has all been in the last 5.5 years, but it's been going rapidly, led by these 2 airlines. So let's start with the airlines and ask, as we go into 2023, 5 years into the revolution in a way, what is the current state of digitization? Liz, would you like to start?
Happily. I do not fully agree that it's only been 5 years, okay. But I'll get back to that. To answer the title question of our discussion, has air cargo truly gone digital at Lufthansa Cargo? I would say, unfortunately, not all the way, but we are working really, really hard on getting there. And why I think that the digital revolution started a little bit longer than 5 years ago is that for many, many years there have been digitization efforts in the transportation process itself. For example, e-airway bill, reducing paper, going more digital with messaging and data exchange. But you're absolutely right. In the past couple of years, the focus has been especially on offer display, on booking. And here we have made tremendous effort with dynamic real-time pricing, with our rapid rate response project, and also our APIs, which enable us to connect to platforms like WebCargo or Cargo One. And yeah.
No, I agree with that, yes. e-Airway bill has a slightly longer history. Also not so long, by the way, but it's more than 5 years. But yeah, from a perspective of booking, which is really a key process, I think it's 5 years. But I agree with you on that. Peter, how about Air France KLM?
Yeah, I'm an optimist, so I would say we're over halfway, so to say. I think digitization is in every process in our company. And yes, we learn a lot of our passenger colleagues, so to say. And a big difference between Passage and cargo is that we don't have these global distribution systems, which Passage has. And nevertheless, IT digitization in mainly 3 areas. The first one is definitely within the pricing area. So the calculation of rates and offering rates to customers. We divide the capacity a little bit in fixed allocations, in free sales. And within the free sales, the offering of a rate has become totally digitized, I would say, with a lot of logic behind that, which you can compare, for example, with if you book a hotel room, these kind of things. The second phase, I would say, is the second process is, of course, the customer journey from booking to invoicing. I think we're doing there a pretty good job. The booking, the quotation, the tracking and tracing, including the claims, that process has been fully digitized, and the more complex items are here to come soon. And the third pillar, I would say, is indeed in operations, and of course everything, like Liz said, regarding the whole airway bill, that's definitely in place. But we also do new things. For example, if you unload nowadays a truck at our Schiphol truck, the packages are automatically scanned, the volume, so they're not effort, but during the unloading, and we compare it with the FWB, and if it's not in line, we update it. So, hey, that could not be done without digitization, I would say. So, in these three pillars, it's definitely there. And even in small things, if I'm tonight at the bar and I do my declaration, I can app it, and my boss can see already how much I spent tonight. So it's totally in our veins, I would say.
I don't know if you can say, but I think I heard your colleague Robert saying that, if I remember correctly, well over 30% of your bookings were already digital. I don't know if you can comment on that, but that sounded like an impressive number, and that was about a year ago.
I can now reveal that it's roughly 75%.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
75% digital bookings.
Yeah, and yeah.
So from your perspective, when we say, has air cargo truly gone digital, okay, not 100%, but you're more than half of the way there, at least from a booking perspective and from some of the other processes?
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think that the customer journey is pretty much in place, though we have some topics like, for example, allocation bookings, which in a certain way is pretty complex. We will introduce soon. Another thing is that, for example, active containers, soon you can order them fully in the digital environment, and you can also see the online temperature of your container online. So these are the more value-adding services we plan to offer, yeah.
So don't be... Don't be confused by what you're hearing on stage. Maybe Air France KLM is 75% digital bookings and other processes are digital. Maybe Lufthansa also has a very high proportion, but there are still many airlines which have 0% digital bookings. So the industry is still in transition. I still meet some airlines who tell me, well, we have one Excel sheet with our price list for the winter and one Excel sheet which we fill out by hand with our price list for the summer. And our whole digitalization is that twice a year we use Excel to So the industry is still quite mixed. It's still in transition to digital, and these are two of the leaders, I would say. So let's now go all the way to the customer experience. Unfortunately, we don't have any freight forwarders on this panel, but there are many freight forwarders in the audience, so we'll be hearing from them also in the next 2 days. Let's go all the way to the shippers. In the end, these are the people who are the customers of air cargo. Let's start with you, Carl. Have you felt any impact yet from digitization at Vichy?
Well, I mean, briefly speaking, digitization is important. That is clear, right? It's supposed to bring transparency, and it's supposed to bring efficiency. Digitization is not new, right? We all have worked on that topic for many, many years, and many years before, maybe more or less on the internal processes rather than on the business-to-business processes, right? And for me, digitization also has a prerequisite. And, you know, at times I'm missing the discussion on this prerequisite. What is the prerequisite? It is standardization in my mind, right? Because if everyone runs off and digitizes his internal process, fine, but then he wants to digitize the collaboration with the business partner in his own way and not in a standardized way, maybe in his own standards, right? Then the shipper gets confronted with many different standards, right?
Yeah.
And the diversity which is being created and the complexity which is being created is just not really very helpful. So I would really vote for, before we talk about digitization, you know, business to business, with our forwarding partners, forwarding with airlines, etc., let's try to come to real standards, which make it much, much easier for everyone. And on the other hand, you know, as far as Vishay is concerned, yeah, sure, we have been working on internal digitization. One of the biggest advantages we have in our close to 40 shipping locations around the globe, we have one standardized system platform for logistics processes. We also use a freight procurement platform, digital. We use digital market intelligence platform, in particular for air freight. So this is what we internally see as huge progress in that terms also.
Yeah, I think standardization is a very interesting topic. It's been discussed at other conferences. I know that Air France KLM are involved in a standardization effort. I think in this industry, if I'm honest, IATA have been a bit slow to create the digital standards, and that's and therefore companies like our Web Cargo come in and create a de facto standard because there isn't yet an open standard.
Right.
But there is work still on creating open standards, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Good, Martin, what about Lenovo? Are you feeling any impact of digitalization?
So we do. I mean, like if you look of Lenovo, digitalization innovation is part of the DNA. This is what helped us to be successful and gain to the top positions within the Gartner supply chain companies in the world. When I look at digitalization in the airline industry, I have mixed feelings, I need to be honest. No offense here. But I have the personal experience, which over the years went really to various transitions. These days, you can book online, you can compare it online, values, comparing platforms. You can check in online. You go through the airport without touching anybody. You hand over the luggage, you get in the plane, you go out. You have loyalty services. Everything is great, right? When you look on the business side, you would expect the same experience. And unfortunately, it's not yet there. It's great to hear that, let's say, Lufthansa and KLM are a little bit far ahead of the competition or of the market. But as you pointed out, I'm like, the rest of the market is falling behind. From our perspective, we have high expectations and ambitions within our organization. We place it on our partners, being the service logistics providers or the airlines directly. And the things that we are missing in the digital world, because when we say digital, yes, the airline industry transitioned from manual into digital, but it was more like EDI. These days we see APIs coming up, but it's slowly adopted, not from everybody, and there is standard challenges, obviously, because you have various ways how you can do it. But you would like to get to a stage where you can look on a cargo, things like ULD build-up, right? How is that being handled? Your visibility of your cargo on the ULDs, how the ULDs are planned on the planes. We as a shipper don't have the visibility to that. And having such, we could pass that information to our predictive models and machine learning that can make sure we choose the right models and flows. And it will help us as well our customers. So digitalization through the process of the part of the, let's say, ground handlers, the airlines, the airports, it's a big subject which I'm still missing, and I would expect to see far more. We had Lufthansa mentioning that the e-house rebuild, I think you wanted to go by 2022, fully e-house rebuilds. I don't know if that happened, right? So it would be interesting to follow up. I don't know what's the stage of the others. We have the e-booking platforms, but it seems to be, as you were pointing out, like a middleman right now trying to define the cooperation between the shippers and the airlines, but with priority right now focusing on the smaller clients and the larger ones like we. don't seem to be having much advantages today, and we already spoke about it. So we have IATA talking about one record, right? There you go. I don't know where we are on that, right? That would solve it. We have logistics providers trying e-labels. Okay, that's something coming up. So a lot of initiatives that seems to be coming here, but when I'm looking for the last 5-10 years, I think we could have done much more as an industry, and even we as shippers to contribute, because on the end, we should probably have opened ourselves much more wider towards the airlines, try to talk into the triangle relationships or directly, because our data could help them, especially in the situations like now when there is a drop of volume. Maybe they could play with it and prepare for it much better, which would then provide value propositions for us, and vice versa. When, let's say, COVID happened and everybody pulled out without pre-notification all the capacities, we ended up there not knowing what to do. And so maybe digital elements which are called out and projects that are being that I mentioned and many others, it's going to be helping us. But I think we need to speed up. We need to get it in the next 2-3 years. It can't be the 5-year, 10-year vision of the CEOs of the companies. It needs to be now. It's the time, I would say.
Well, yeah, agreed with that. I do want to say, though, I hope what I said before wasn't misleading. The industry has made a lot of progress. So I did say there are some airlines left behind, but these are not the only 2 airlines who are digitized. They're the first 2.
Exactly.
We have very good digital connections with IAG and Qatar and Emirates and American and China Southern. In total, we have calculated that the airlines who have digital connections for rates, for bookings, is just over 50% of the worldwide capacity. So from our perspective, how digital is air cargo? At least potentially, it's just over 50% of the airlines have a digital capability for booking, for rates. And within that, then, how much of their bookings are digital? So Air France, KLM are probably amongst the leaders with 75%. I don't know if you have a number you can share, but it's... So we're getting there. There's a significant progress, and that's 100 times more than 3 years ago.
True, but that's more like the front end. Look on the processes. We had I think the example of automatical scanning of the cargo. That's absolutely a great thing to do, right? The weights, the measurements, the locations where it's loaded, right? You shouldn't happen that actually the cargo arrives and your goods are not on it, and you're surprised that it's on a different ULD on a different plane. I mean, like, how could that happen? If they would scan it through the chain, like your luggage, if they would scan it through the way, it shouldn't get lost. But
No,
it
I
does,
agree.
right?
I think you're right. There's still a lot to do.
So I'm trying to challenge the
I
industry.
would say, just from my perspective, I'm amazed how much progress there's been in 3 years. Very rapid progress, more than I expected. And I think, I'm not sure if France KLM could have said 3 years ago that you'd be at 75% digital bookings. That's probably exceeded your own expectations, certainly. So we've got momentum. Yes, we're not there yet, though, I agree. Okay, well, airlines aren't much use without airports, right? So let's hear the perspective of Budapest Airport. Josef, as the head of cargo, what's digitization mean for you?
That was very interesting to listen the previous opinions and standpoints. And I'm an airport, you're right. So that I'm not making digital bookings because I'm not a freight forwarder or not a shipper. I'm not processing e-airway bills because I'm not a freight forwarder or an airline. But how, for example, the digitization or the support of the digitization became part of our strategy. That we were quite successful in the last, 6-7 years. We doubled our volumes from 100,000 to 200,000 tons cargo. I know that I mentioned that we are investing, but flight connectivities, physical infrastructure are important part of this development world. And what have we heard from colleagues from Vienna Airport? The cargo community is very important. Then you are doing a great job here. We are also doing a great job in Budapest. We talk to the freight forwarders, we talk to the shippers, airlines. We try to understand how the airport can help them in digitization. Because everybody, they have their own projects, they are leading their own digitization developments and something. And what we realize that there are several different projects, and this online booking is just one thing, but also the freight forwarders, they have their own systems, the handling companies, they have their own systems, the GSAs are using own systems, the authorities, the customs, dangerous goods control, they have their own systems, they are reportings. And what we decided, and we have quite an advanced project at Budapest Airport under procurement, that we took the lead and we bring a new cargo community system to the market, to our cargo clients. It is very similar to cargo community systems, more or less similar suppliers, what you hear in Brussels, Liège, Frankfurt. But the idea is to create a platform, then everything which are individually developed, maybe even somehow this online booking can be connected to a cargo community system. Maybe it is even connected somewhere, but the main goal is to simplify the e-airwheel transmissions, data transmissions, communication between all the clients. And that was very interesting how we did this in Budapest, that we will have one large step. So we really went to all authorities, customs, civil, disaster protection, who are dealing with the dangerous goods, and we try to digitize almost everything in one step. And what we realized that the airport has a very good neutral role on this whole environment to start, speed up, support big digital developments, which supports, the individual project of the client. So this is what we do. But this is a must. I guess what I mentioned, no question. So this is part of our future. If you know, half year ago we knew nothing about ChatGPT. No, I went to ChatGPT 3 weeks ago. I asked them about our cargo development story, and ChatGPT prepared in 50 seconds an A4 page perfect text, all data, all information, something. So there are big changes on the market. But the airport must, this is what we believe, the airport must take the lead on this. Cargo community organization, digitization, and nobody else is organizing this.
Very good. So let's talk a little bit, digitalization is just the technology. Let's talk a little bit about the business implications of digitalization. And I think where I'd like to start is pricing, because that's very important. If you're an airline, the price is your revenue. And if you're a shipper, the price is a major part of your expense. I think you mentioned $1 billion, so that's a chunk of expense or order of magnitude on logistics. So prices are important to everyone. And of course, during COVID, we've all gone through a crazy roller coaster of prices going up hugely and crashing back down. And now, one thing that I noticed is that digitalization makes prices a lot more dynamic. Those of us who are old enough remember how for passengers, prices used to be static in the 90s, and then suddenly EasyJet came along and Southwest Airlines, and prices were changing every minute. And we've seen the same, honestly, in cargo. In fact, I think I can say when we first connected to Lufthansa as our first partner in 2018, so we had a real-time connection, but the price for a while was always coming back the same. So maybe the first few months, maybe behind the API was an Excel sheet with a static price. But then that changed. One day we started seeing that the prices are changing dynamically. I know the Air France KLM prices change dynamically. So we still have these non-digital airlines, which, like I said, they're setting their price for 6 months. And we've got these digital airlines who, I don't know exactly how often, but I think you're updating your prices hour by hour, maybe sometimes minute by minute. Also from a density perspective, it used to be we always go, 1 to 6, 166 kilos per cubic meter was always the density, because that was just an industry average. Now I think you're taking a dynamic look, and you're saying on this flight we have plenty of volume, but we're nearly out of weight, or vice versa. You can also price the density in a dynamic way. So I think this is a big business change. So let's maybe start this time the other way from Peter. And what's the business implication of digitalization and dynamic prices? How does this change your business?
Yeah, to my idea, there's only one group who decides what it's all about, and that's the customers. And with the many dialogues we have with the customers, that in principle, the customers like it. They like the digital tool, and they like especially the possibility to look both for capacity and what the applied rate for that is. If you give an Excel sheet, well, most likely the time that you print it is already outdated. And that means that you need to make a manual transaction, you need to call to a customer whatsoever. So there's a lot of, let's say, work involved. And the beauty of dynamic pricing is that the customer can ask for a rate 24/7. And for sure they will get the best rate given the current market circumstances. And of course, for constrained routes, that means a little bit a higher rate. But also if you're more empty and whatsoever, it's an opportunity. And what we saw, for example, that before we went so digital, that the whole booking process was very much within, let's say, the daily working times. But of course, with the digital analytics, you can see, hey, when are bookings exactly being made? And then we definitely do see that we already knew that people in the logistics work hard, but they definitely also book in the evenings and in the weekends, for example. So in that way, I think it is a positive development. And in the end, I think that airlines with Excel sheets need to follow. Yeah.
Let's go to Martin from a customer perspective. How has the way that you negotiated prices changed in the last few years, if at all?
Well, due to COVID, unfortunately, really heavily, but it also forced us into digitalization. So I liked what was just mentioned, because the last 2 years, let's say historically, Lenovo run on yearly cycles. So we've done every RFQ for 12 months, where we consolidated our global power lines. And when COVID hit, that wasn't enough. We needed to go into a weekly mode operation. And there, things like time zones really impacted you, that the offer that was on the table for a charter suddenly wasn't available until you went through the chains of approvals or getting it through the 3PL into the airline confirmation. So this is where the digitalization element really played and helped us to make sure we could speed up the processes and pass on and take on the opportunities as they were coming. And I think going forward, the ability to see live pricing is definitely of a value for a shipper, because it can drive decisions on your routing and prioritizations and maybe consolidation elements. And having in the future the opportunity to see, let's say, the dynamics on the market with, let's say, near real time, because it's never real time, but as close as real time, actually can really help to do that. And I think this is where I also see the future, comparing to the e-booking platforms and overall connection to the airlines, is that maybe not for all my capacity, I would go through the platform and procure the entire capacity with one shot. But I could, for the let's say 10% or 15% of my regular cargo, I could use let's say e-booking platform and a digital approach and get a voucher, and then I go to a 3PL and say, hey, can you execute this on my behalf? And the rest I would still do the standard way. And that helps me to be flexible. It helps me to deal with capacity spikes, right? And I think it's something that I would like to see going forward, obviously.
Miha, do you make your own booking, or is it your forwarder?
It's the forwarders.
Forwarders.
Yeah, I mean, like, we try to be hands-on, so I don't like to say that we don't trust our 3PLs, but we really look on the gateways and combinations and capacities and making sure they do it all right. And for the future, with digital solutions, we would like to maybe see a machine learning model and AI doing that for you, so you can distract yourself or distance yourself from it, and let the show run by itself, and then you focus only on the things that you need. So.
Thank you.
So just to mention that the Slido is up, so feel free. We've already got 3 questions. I think we will have time to take some audience questions. So feel free to post your questions at slido.com. Very good. Liz, how about Lufthansa? How's digitalization impacted the business, the yield management?
I think, okay, now you can hear me. That has made a tremendous impact. As you said before, when we started, I remember that we did upload some of our standard rate sheets, SRAs that some customers have to WebCargo, and that's of course always the rate they would get, so it's static. And the only dynamic pricing aspect was our sales team when the customer directly asked us for a quote for a specific shipment. And now with dynamic pricing, with the digital opportunities that we have, that is possible 24/7. So also I totally agree that has made things a lot more flexible. It's now possible whether there is someone at the office or not. If it's urgent, it can be at midnight or in the middle of the night. So that's definitely a big change. And from the timing perspective, I think that we really hit the jackpot, because as COVID hit, our rapid rate response project was finally getting ready to be rolled out. So even as we all moved into home office, we're not able to move freely around and to staff the offices. There was still an opportunity for our customers to book those prices. And as you said, as soon as that went live, it's a dynamic price, and it's not just a price that's updated every few hours, but it's really a specific price for the shipment, for the routing that you're asking at that time. So it might change 10 minutes later if another big shipment has been booked and the flight is filling up, then the rate might change. In the other way, if we have a cancellation, then the rate might drop. So it's really at that specific time the best rate that we can offer, and that's something good.
24/7 except when a tractor cuts a fiber optic cable in Frankfurt. I'm teasing, but that's, I don't know if we'll have time to discuss it, but that's one of the issues of digitalization. We become very dependent on the infrastructure. And you're not the only ones. If there's a physical problem with the infrastructure, hacking. I was in the Maersk office when they got hacked and they had to shut down all the computers and go back, try to remember how to book things by paper. This is one of the challenges with digitalization, yeah. All right, good. What about that Vichy, Carl?
Pricing or getting rate information. I think before COVID, many in the industry had like 12 months validity for the rates, etc. Right? COVID changed everything. So we went to split our total air freight into two segments, tier 1 lanes, which are the high volume, very important lanes, and then the tier 2 lanes, which were less volume, less important. So for the tier 1 lanes, we started to run tenders every month, right? Not every week, every month. And for the tier 2 lanes, we had tenders every 3 months. What we saw, I mean, this measure allowed us really to stay at market level, right? And this is the only thing I can promise to my management, right? I cannot create miracles, but I should be trying to stay at market level. And this is what this monthly RFQs did for me very well. The execution of the RFQs, of the tenders, is digitized using a freight procurement platform, as I've said earlier, which makes it very, very efficient and fast. So if the tender closes Saturday, I have all the results on the desk on Monday, and we can be making decisions. I can, with the market intelligence platform I'm using, we can permanently benchmark our rates, right? And see, okay, are we really needing to do something on any of the lanes? This is a big advantage, I have to say as well. For mostly our business is very stable, the air freight business is very stable, continuous volumes, etc. So this will be continued to go the standard, old-fashioned way through the forwarding partners, and then they negotiate with airlines within their BSAs, etc. So our freight is very attractive, so usually we get very good rates. Spot shipments is maybe a different thing. I think we'll be looking into the utilization of these platforms, digital booking platforms more, in particular when it comes to bigger shipments.
All right, good. And then, Josef, I mean, you're not buying or selling freight services, but what is the business impact of digitalization? How does it change the way you do business as an airport?
If I also follow what all these opinions and what I see, that it helps the airline, to sell the capacities, optimize revenues, increase the load factors, saving maybe manpower. And it doesn't mean that you fire people, because I guess now the issue is not reduce headcount. Our challenge for everybody to get appropriate headcount for your growing business, because manpower was not an issue also in Central Eastern Europe, or at least in Hungary 20 years ago. Their manpower was not an issue. Now that's an issue now. So that's the, now everywhere you have to automate things. So if I approach this from this direction, all these things which is good for the airline, for the shipper, for the forwarder, it is good for the airport. Because we also need volumes, we need seamless procedures, we need great cooperations, and if you do it via the freight forwarder or I would say directly, I guess market will decide that what can work in the future. So I like this is in the air freight industry. That's a very free, very liberal, very democratic industry, new technologies, free decision makings. And if there are digitized solutions like this online booking which are attractive and this is working well, it looks like they spread like hell. So maybe your booking rate will be 90% in 3 years. So you can never know. But we warmly welcome all these initiatives which are digitized, and we always talk to the market, we talk to players, how can we help? So like, how can we help, for example, you, Zvi, to increase this in Budapest? I don't know, with your clients, or Lufthansa, or Air France-KLM. So like, if we can help somehow, just approach us and we will do our best.
Sounds good. Let's go to some questions from the audience. I think I'll start with the last one here. Do we need to wait for the weakest link in the chain? Do we see actors playing in the industry not stepping up? Or is it digitalization simply too expensive for smaller actors? So let's ask, that's a great question. Let's ask each of you, okay, you're all very digital and very committed to digitalization, but maybe you're held up because the ground handlers or the truckers or the airports in some cases, not in Budapest of course, but some other airports maybe aren't well digitalized. So what are the dependencies, what are the other actors who are holding up your digitalization efforts? Do you want to start, Carl?
Well, looking at the question, for me, again, I have to come back with my credo, standardization, right? Standardization can really create efficiency even in digitization and communication. And I think because they specifically mentioned the smaller actors, smaller shippers probably, or partners in the supply chain. And of course, you know, the more standards we have, the more efficient, the cheaper all of this can get. So standardization, please. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to take up the last part of the question. Simply too expensive for smaller actors. When talking about our customers, I mean, for e-AWB and for digital data transmission, you need a sophisticated system that can do all that. And this is where we're not trying to push and force everyone to implement a super expensive, fancy system, but we really try to offer a solution that works for everyone. So even for customers that do not have messaging capabilities, we try to offer something directly on our platform where they can book, where they can put the shipment data directly into our system, be able to make their shipments e-AWBs even if there's no digital data transmission behind that. So I would say we do not necessarily need to wait, but it's a lot of effort to really try to get everyone on the same level. And of course with ground handling, it's the same. If you look at some of the processes, there's still way too much paper involved for my taste, but yeah.
Right. But what you're saying is everyone can afford a web browser. So if they can't afford an IT project to connect to you, at least they can go to your website or our website or the airport website and do what they need to do. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, good. Martin.
Good question. Overall, I look on it the way that every industry only is going to be changing if it's forced to, either by a disaster, like we had it, let's say, with the COVID situation, or if the customers and the participants on that particular, let's say, market are demanding it. So I think when we look on the, let's say, the weakest point in the chain and so on, I think all of us need to come together and participate in making sure we lift up and we help with, let's say, perfect example is like customs, right? In the chain, usually it's out there, you can't really influence it, but together we can have a dialogue trying to get it into a blockchain digital level environment, right? So it could be much faster. The ground handlers, it's another way that usually you don't really focus on the chain, right? So I think it depends on us, on how we as the stronger players and the ones who are dictating the directions in the industry and have expectations on solving them with digitalization can help all the others and push it through, because that's the only way to be successful.
Maybe I can also say some word, Peter, about to this, that for example, if you take this community system or also the implementation on the market, if there are big significant players who are needed to your program or to the success of your implementation, you cannot avoid that you need to convince them somehow. So this is what, for example, we did in Budapest. We cannot leave out the handling companies from the whole story. We need to sit down, all of them separately together, showing the advantages of the projects that we are bringing. Then we went to the authorities, and we had to find the sales points to convince each of them, I don't know, police, customs, CAA, dangerous goods control. It is a long work, but this is something what you can't avoid, because, okay, it depends on what you implement on your market, but if we are talking a community system, for example, in our case, it can work if the major players are using it. If you start, so I guess you can't avoid. Smaller actors, I guess it is not necessarily, digitization does not necessarily link to the size of the company. I see some smaller companies, for example, in our environment, who want to make an advantage to become digital earlier than the big players. Because they say, I have a better product, I have a better tracking, something. So, but that's not easy still. So it's like somehow what I feel that it is in the air. Everybody knows that they should change, but when you sit down and when you talk about numbers, projects, resources, programs, cost, something, it is still not easy. But that's the beauty of our air cargo industry. Easy, so that's, it keeps up active, so not boring. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like the question of Peter de Leeuw, and I would like to introduce a metaphor of how I look at it. Envision, let's say, the Seychelles, a beautiful island group, and I see 4 clusters of islands. I see a cluster of shippers, I see a cluster of forwarders, I see a cluster of airport communities, and I see a cluster of airlines. And if you talk about digitization, I think that every island group is very busy with digitizing their own island group. And of course, there are leaders in these different island groups, and for sure they will benefit, let's say, from the innovators, so to say. And I think we're now in the phase that we need to build bridges between the different island groups. And you mentioned that standardization. Now, we can go a little bit more specific about standardization. I think especially within the interchangeability between the groups I mentioned, there are in principle 2 solutions. One of is that besides our own platforms, there's an API option, so to say, that you try to connect, let's say, more than one airline with a specific forwarder, so to say. That's one possibility. Another possibility are, of course, the third-party platforms, like Freightos, Cargo One, and these kind of. And they also can make these connections. And yeah, they're all available in the market. I hope that not one will become dominant, so to say, because that would not be good for our industry. It also depends a little bit what kind of transport management systems the forwarders use. You also see over there a specific consolidation to 1 or 2 preferred systems. So they play an important role to make the connections. And to be honest, I have too little knowledge of how, let's say, the forwarders would connect to the shippers. But I can also see that standardization is needed over there.
Absolutely. There is still a big diversity there. Yeah. And not only, every forwarder has its own interface to the shipper. Sometimes one forwarder has got multiple different interfaces depending on the region he works in, right? So that makes it expensive for shippers also, right? Because you need to adjust your interfaces, etc. And this is maybe what Peter also addressed there.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt, but we have 2 questions about the future, which is the perfect thing to finish with. We want to have an on-time landing. We've got 2.5 minutes, so you've each got 30 seconds about the future. What does the next, 3 to 10 years, what are the headlines of digitalizations in 30 seconds or less? Peter, do you want to start?
I think I already said it. I hope that there will be much more, let's say, interfaces between the different island groups I just mentioned. I think that is the biggest challenge we have as an industry, including the shippers, from shipper to airline. Yeah.
Josef, the future of digitalization, 30 seconds or less.
I guess what we will see in the next 3-5 years, it will be amazing. So I really believe that, for example, AI will be a more active part of this logistics organization as well. Maybe, maybe in 3 years, AI will do an automatic booking by Lenovo on the Lufthansa website at the cheapest rate on the best option. We don't know. So okay, but that's really progressing. That's my feeling, speeding up.
Yeah, I can jump on that wagon. Is that I hope that actually with the future we're going to be getting less active into the, let's say, shipment management, the pricing management and so on, and we're going to have tools that's going to be doing it predictably for us, ideally, and we can focus on the value-added things. And I can only hope that in 5 years sitting here, maybe all us together can say like, hey, we achieved that, and look, everything is digital, and we don't need to do anything, and we can focus on the good things in life.
Sounds good. Liz?
Yeah, what's really, really necessary, and I totally agree with you there on the standardization, is that we have it from the first island to the last. So really through the entire transportation process, not just between airlines and forwarders or forwarders and shippers, but really to connect all the dots and not work on different data sets and data gets lost. So although IATA is a little bit slow and behind, I have big hopes in the One Record project, where really everyone works on a single data set and updates it. So I think that will be a game changer.
Sounds good. Carl?
Well, fully agree with what my colleagues on the panel said, and I would just have one addition, right? It seems to me, working with many different forwarders globally, right? It seems to me, even on the forwarder side, there needs to be, for some at least, for some bigger forwarders, there needs to be more investment in IT and digitization. So I do have the feeling that they're a little too conservative here. More money into IT digitization. It needs money, for sure.
Great. So in the final few seconds, just two quick comments from me. First of all, definitely agree with connecting everyone together. Obviously, at Freightos and WebCargo, that's our goal, to connect all the platforms together. And I want to say just a last word about sustainability, because we didn't have time to discuss it. And I apologize that we didn't have time to discuss it, but I hope that digitization will help to fill the airplanes, because according to IATA, air cargo holds are typically pre-COVID 50% empty. And that means that the carbon footprint is almost double what it has to be per kilogram. And so I hope when digitization helped to fill up the passenger, the upper cabin, we all saw that. And I hope we can help to utilize the lower cabins. So we didn't have time to discuss that, but I wanted to at least mention that important aspect. Well, it's been a wonderful panel. Thank you all very much. So appreciate having everyone on stage here.
So huge thanks to our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now a little coffee break. So we will continue with another panel discussion at 5 minutes past 11, so 11:5. We will continue with the second panel discussion of today's program of World of Freight Summit in Vienna. So let's enjoy your time in here. We prepared for you some snacks and some coffee. So then in less than half hour, we will be back again. Thank you so much.